So for example, if you want your character to cast a spell, you could just copy the pose from the first one like before using tools, copy pose. Here for the head we used part swap, and here we have our anticipation frame where he draws his arms back and kind of pulls his body back in anticipation of what he's about to do. It makes the motion that he's doing a lot more obvious if you use some kind of anticipation motion like that, like for jumping or attacks. This keyframe was kind of thrown in just to make some adjustments as he comes back and to sustain the part swap up to this point. At this point, if you copy keyframes, I don't have it set to copy the part swap value, so when you go to a new keyframe you'll have to actually tell it what you want the part swap to be, and that's because sometimes I don't always want it to copy the part swap, or more often than not I don't want to, but I may change that in the future. For jumping, you got your anticipation frame here. The ears kind of trail upwards, they don't really come down right away, they're like elastic, they snap down as they try to catch up. So in this keyframe actually they should actually be going down a bit more already. Middle mouse button to do that. So right here he's already starting to round out his jump. You don't want to lift him up too high off of where he was originally standing for the animation itself. In the game we'll take care of the actual positioning of the character as he's being animated, and that's because you want your collision detections to be consistent. So it's going to be doing collision detection checks for an area around here and an area down around here. I also make him kind of look in the direction that he's moving. You don't have to do that. When he comes down there's a little bit of follow through. We can even add some squash and stretch so that we're kind of showing just how much gravity there is when he gets to the bottom. His ears kind of do that. Could even do that a bit more with his arms, and we can turn on scale children end, and that'll allow you to take a part of them and just stretch it right out if you want to. You can technically do that with a little more precision too if you just use these here. I'm going to reset this. If you're ever rotating a limb and it's distorting as you're turning it, that's because the offsets weren't set for that angle. So what you can do is you can middle click, hit reset, and then make adjustments. For stretching here, I'm just going to move this arm a little bit and then just change these offsets a little bit. So for the duck animation, I didn't do this one too well, I kind of rushed it, but basically you have your start frame and where you want him to be, and then your fixes in between. Here I got a part swap so that his one hand turns the other way. This part here is blending using hide show, so it'll automatically change the alpha value of the original facial expression so that it slowly blends into what you want over the keyframes that you set it to blend for. So wherever you set your hide show for the one, like start hiding it here. Well, technically I'm not hiding the original frown, I'm just showing this one. And I've changed this now so that you can now work with multiple ones at the same time. So what I would do actually is delete these three keyframes here, 5, 6, and 7, and move 4 down to the end right here where my arrow is, and then spread these out so that he only ducks down in the animation. So it would be from here to here. And then when the player lets go of the duck button, he starts going back up. And if they start pressing it again, he starts going back down. And if they let go again part way down, he starts going back up. And it can do that using play forward and play reverse. I'd put 4 at the second last position probably, and then just tweak the animation carefully, and then you can adjust the speed in the game. If your character takes damage, you might want to have an animation for that. I have this facial expression where he looks like he got hit, so he just kind of throws his arms out, his pupils change in size, and kind of throws himself back like he just got hit from in front. And I used hide show on, oh no, I used part swap to get this head here. In the tutorial example for making a game that uses this, we'll just use the walk animation and speed it up based on how fast he's going and slow it down, rather than complicating it by having it. It doesn't complicate it much, but based on the velocity, you can have him switch to a run animation instead if his velocity is high enough. So once you're happy with your animation, you can save your file and go to Tools, go to File, Export, Export TXT for the first one. If you add other characters later, like if you're creating other character animations in a different file, you can actually combine them all into one project for a final export called Export Add Projects to one PNG and one TXT. So we're just going to say Export, and I'll just call it alien.txt. In this case, we just have the alien.png. We don't have a combo PNG, which usually has combo in the title. And that would be if you had multiple characters on one export. It's good to name your export file differently than your txt file for the rectangles for this, because MeoMotion needs the alien.txt, the original alien.txt rectangle file. So I put the animations in a separate folder and use the same name. It's probably best, just to be safe, to use a different name though. And here's what the format looks like. So if you ever need to manually edit anything, you can go right in here and just tweak whatever. When it looks up a character and an animation, it uses what's called spritesheet file name. So it's looking for this. And if there was another character in this file, it would be the name of that character's original graphics file name. And then when it looks up the animation, for example, I can type in animation, hit F3, get to the first one. So the first one's idle 1. So let's say in the game you want it to do an animation, but you forget what you called it. You thought you called it idle, and then you come in here and you look up the animation name and just keep hitting F3 until you find the animation you're looking for, and you realize, oh, you didn't call it idle, you called it idle 1. So then there's idle 2 and run, and so on. And if you wanted, you could take these looping values out if you didn't want it to loop. You change your mind. Probably best to do that in the animation program itself though, and then export it. So then you'd copy that txt file, not the other rectangle one, but the animation export, and you'd go into your program that you're making. For example, in Documents, Visual Studio, Projects, Platformer. Then we'd go to where it creates the released version. In this case, we haven't actually built the released version yet, so we'll just go into the debug version, and you'll see the exe file in there, and that's when you know that you can paste that file. So yeah, you want to make sure in your final release that you actually put it with the binary in the release also. For now, we're just going to make a copy of it in the debug version right alongside the exe, the executable. So we'll paste it in here. Your level data is actually going to be in here, content. Your graphics file is actually going to be converted to an XNB. So when you copy the PNG, just copy it into your original content folder with your other PNGs as you do normally.